This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, harvest is going so well, what can possibly go wrong? We'll find out. And we'll visit another neighbor just down the road if they slow the combine up just a bit. And who can find a better use for hot air than me? Well, almost anybody, but we'll find out what and who is wired on wind. That and more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Hi, and welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Harvest is going great guns. The weather's been cooperating, for now, and just don't stand too long near your local grain elevator. You'll likely get buried or run over. Local farmers are making huge strides in their fields. With the percentage of fields harvested, beans have almost caught up to corn. So with good weather, good yields, and plenty of October left on the calendar, what could possibly go wrong? With me today is our resident wordwart, Jim Loft, from the Cooperative Extension Office, and he has some tips for farmers on how to avoid harvest bottlenecks. Now, thanks for being here today, Jim. What are you going to do to bring this party down? It's been a great fall so far.
Well, I'm not going to bring it down. I'm just going to say this harvest has moved along at a fairly good pace. It's not been frenetic. It's been slow to begin with. Everybody had a chance to make adjustments, deal with situations, and now they're running in earnest. So this is a good time to think. It's a good time to watch. It's a good time to take notes and prepare for next year. So
you're asking people to think?
Yes.
You know? Okay, so what sort of things should they think about? I mean, obviously you want everything working right, but what else can you do?
Well, this year the yields are off a little bit from what we've seen in the last 5 years. We've had some pretty good years. You may have added some land, you may have changed some equipment. So one of the things you need to do is keep the combine running, obviously. If the combine stops for whatever reason it is, then your system probably is not designed properly. Maybe your drive to your on-farm storage is too long, maybe your drive to the elevator is too long. The lines haven't been bad so far this year, which is a good thing. Maybe your auger capacity is wrong. So it's a good time to have notes. You can get these little micro recorders that you can carry and you can say, where is that guy? He should have been back here 10 minutes ago. But then when you're down, this winter, you can look at those things and say, well, do I need to upgrade the auger? Is the drive too long? Do I need to look at a different truck? Because the combine needs to run. And you might say, well, how can I figure out what I need to do? Well, first thing you can do is you can go to the web, do a search, and you can do equipment, field capacity, or whatever, something along those lines. And it'll show you some statistics, it'll show you some numbers so that you could say an 8-row head running at 4 miles an hour in corn with an efficiency of about 65%, and that's kind of the thing, how long the turns that you make, you start the combine in the morning, you check oils, you do things, so none of them run at 100%. So you figure all that out and it comes out to about 6.4 acres per hour. Well, if you're running this year 150 bushel corn, that's one thing. If you're running 225 bushel corn, then that means you're going to need to get rid of 1900 bushel an hour of corn. So if you've got a bottleneck somewhere in the system of unloading, or the distance to truck is too far, those are things you can think about now while you're in the combine when you've got a year where you're not pushing, because the yields are low, to be prepared for next year. Or maybe you've rented some additional ground next year. So you need to look at those things.
Like you said, so a farmer should be doing all these things last year, early in the spring. What can they do right now to make things run smoother?
Well, it's always good to get out and walk around the combine at some point. If you're waiting for a truck, just get out and walk around it. It's good to get up and walk, move, whatever, but there will be buildups of residue and things on the combine, and you need to pay attention to those. We don't need fires. We've had some fires this year. Also, if your system is right and running smooth, that guy who's hauling the grain is going to come back to the farm to pick up grain at a little easier pace, maybe, if he knows or she knows, there's a lot of women out there driving trucks
as a matter of fact,
that they don't have to just run all the stop signs and everything because somebody's going to be waiting there for them to pick the grain up. So there's things like that you can do. Schedule, you know, your significant other if they're not working, or they can bring lunch to the field every once in a while. It's kind of nice to do that.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Now, one of the things was sort of nice earlier in the harvest this year was the fog actually slows some people down, didn't it?
Yes, the moisture came up and down in the crop. The corn, a lot of times, the corn, the way that crop went, we kind of got some of the moisture sealed in the ear. But the beans have been up and down. We got going in the beans. We got some of that foggy weather. We got some of that moisture.
Right. So, but I mean, farmers weren't getting out in the field
No,
at 4 o'clock in the morning and working
Right.
till 2 o'clock in the morning.
And when they get in beans, they can't run as big a days as they can in corn. So, but the beans, when they got dry in a hurry.
Well,
so.
given the rate that things have been going so far this fall, by the time this show airs, chances are we're going to be good 60–70% done with the harvest. So, what can farmers are there things they can do when they're dropping off the grain to be thinking about running smoothly?
Well, when you're at the elevator is another. If there are lines, is no good time to think. You're looking at. You know, there's a tillage bottleneck too that get fertilizer spread. We've got some issues with the down corn. If they're going to follow that with soybeans, they'll be able to spray that corn and kill it in the soybeans. But if they're following it with corn, that down corn,
Right.
there's going to be a lot of volunteer corn. So those are some things you can think about as well. And that little recorder, that little notebook, great tools. Don't take them home and hide them. Keep them out and use them.
Well, excellent. Use the biggest muscle in your body, your brain, right? Okay, thank you, Jim. Now that you've been warned about avoiding some harvest bottlenecks, what else do you need to know? How about how to make, or better yet, how to avoid a buck? Here with the Four Rivers Ag News is Monica Becker.
Hi everyone, I'm Monica Becker. An Illinois-based insurance company released a report on the likelihood of you coming into some dough. The State Farm Insurance released a report this week on the company's findings on car-deer collisions. While the number of deer vehicle collisions has dropped nationally for the 3rd year in a row, State Farm classifies Illinois as a medium-risk state, saying odds are 1 in 250 of having a deer and vehicle collision. State Farm says motorists in West Virginia are most likely to run into a deer. The state tops the list for the 5th year in a row. Iowa is 2nd, South Dakota's 3rd, followed by Pennsylvania and Michigan. Deer vehicle collisions are least likely in Hawaii. Just another reason to move to Hawaii, right? Now, as we heard earlier, the crops are arriving at elevators all over the Midwest, and this week the USDA released the 4th quarter grain stocks report. Todd Gleason has more on what the nation has left over from last year's harvest.
The USDA's 4th quarter grain stocks report shows there are more bushels of corn on hand than most had expected.
USDA estimated that old crop corn inventories of September 1 totaled about 1.1 billion bushels. Just put that in perspective, a year ago we had about 1.7 billion bushels of old crop corn on hand. So we are down significantly from a year ago, but on the other hand, the estimate is about 200 million bushels larger than what the USDA had been forecasting in its monthly balance sheet. So I think it's viewed as a pretty negative number, implies that feed use of corn during this past summer was at a very low level.
Here's what he thinks that number will mean to corn farmers.
Obviously, it means that we've got larger supplies of corn available for consumption over the 12-month marketing year, about 200 million bushels more than we thought. But that's coming on top of what we're seeing as some slowdown in livestock production. Broiler numbers are on the decline. We think feedlot inventories of cattle will be declining after the first of the year. We've got a kind of a stagnating ethanol production numbers and really a slow start to the export program for the new marketing year. So these larger supplies come when consumption is already declining and suggest that we will have larger inventories of corn available a year from now than what the market had been expecting. A second implication is perhaps that corn producers will not need to expand corn acres in 2012 if demand is as weak as now it appears and supplies are large. So that will take some of the pressure off of next year's prices as well.
For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
A local company that makes grain storage equipment is also in the news. Ag equipment manufacturer AGCO is buying Assumption, Illinois-based GSI Holdings for $940 million. Grain Systems International is a leading global manufacturer of grain storage and protein production systems. Headquartered in Assumption, Illinois, GSI sells its products globally through more than 500 independent dealers. The transaction is expected to close before the end of 2011, subject to regulatory approval. Now that some farmers are finishing up their combining, a few of them will be tempted to apply nitrogen for next year's corn crop. The University of Illinois Extension Soil Fertility Specialist says that's not a good idea, and anhydrous ammonia application shouldn't take place until the 4-inch soil temperature is 50 degrees or below.
The reason for that is because with warmer temperatures, the bacteria that transform ammonium to nitrate is very active in the soil, and the bacteria will continue active until 32 degrees, but the activity is reduced quite a bit after 50 degrees. So that's why we recommend those 50-degree temperatures.
If applications are made prior to the time the 50-degree and declining soil temperatures are reached, the nitrogen fertilizer escapes into the environment and the money spent on it is lost. Central Illinois 4-inch soil temperatures usually arrive about the 3rd week of October, and corn farmers in the southern part of the state should wait until next spring to make nitrogen applications. And that's it for this week. I'm Monica Becker. Fred?
As the poet laureate of Soho, Bob Dylan, used to say, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Well, maybe not, but this week, the Extension 4-H in Lakeland College hosted the National 4-H National Science Experiment Day, and this year's theme was Wired on Wind. Now, to blow us away with all the details is Dana Holman from Extension 4-H. And Dana, what was this National Science Fair, and how did local 4-H get all involved in this?
Well, National 4-H Council has a move to get more kids engaged in science. And so for 4 years ago, they started doing a National Science Day. And the idea behind that is to have thousands of kids across the United States doing the same science experiment on the same day. And today, October the 5th, was the day for the National Science Day.
So what was this Wired on Wind, and why was that picked for this year's topic?
This year's topic was Wired for Wind, and it's all about renewable energy. And renewable energy is a hot topic right now. A lot of people are going to renewable energy and looking for ways to conserve energy. And so this year's experiment was Wired for Wind.
Now, how many kids participated this year, and what sort of stuff did they do?
We partnered with Lakeland College to do the experiment this year, and we had 75 youth, 4th graders from Cumberland Elementary School participate.
So what did they do? What sort of experiment did they conduct?
There was actually 3 steps to the experiment. The first step was they actually got to build a wind turbine. The second step was they got to adjust the pitch of the turbines of the blades to see which pitch and angle and shape of blade actually produced the most energy. And they got to test it out to see how much energy they were producing and how fast their blades would spin. Then the third experiment was they actually got to look at a map of Illinois and test the wind speed and look at population of the different areas of the state and see where would be a good location to have a wind farm here in the state of Illinois.
Well, that's excellent news. So this is only a small part of what 4-H is involved in these days. It's come a long way since when I was a kid, and 4-H was only the one sort of agricultural thing. Tell us about sort of things you're doing with 4-H these days.
Agriculture is actually a small part of 4-H anymore. Whatever a child's interest is, there's probably a 4-H project that they would like or be able to participate in. There's, of course, we have energy, we have conservation, computers, science projects, you name it, there's probably a project that a child would be interested in.
So in our area, about how many kids are involved in 4-H?
There is probably around 700 to 800 that are involved in community 4-H clubs within the 5 counties within Unit 19.
So if children weren't already involved and didn't know about it, how could they find out more information about 4-H, and how can we get them involved in stuff like this?
Watch the paper for projects or workshops that are coming up that they can participate in, or they can contact the local extension office and inquire about 4-H and what 4-H has to offer.
Thank you so much, Dana.
You're welcome.
One of the things we're looking forward to is visiting with a different area farmer every week. And although finding one that would take some time to talk to us this week was a little bit low, let's just say you guys were just a little bit busy. But with some help from our friends, we headed up 1270 and caught up with Larry Catant for this week's Just Down the Road. How long have you been farming? Where do you farm?
Well, I farm all in Coles County, just in this general area, northwest of Charleston. And I've been farming since about 1985. I did other things before that.
Is this a family farm or do you rent? How do you come by your land?
It's almost all of it's in the family. It's not my parents directly, but aunts and uncles, and then my stepmom has some ground. So I farm for the family, and I've been. It's mostly a tenant crop share, but part of it's cash rent. So
when did you realize you wanted to be a farmer?
Well, I was previously a biologist and worked at the Illinois Natural History Survey, but then I was on soft money, and my dad was about to enter retirement, and he said, "Would you like a shot at farming?" And I said, "Well, I'll try for a year." So
you tried it for a year. Then why do you stick with it?
Well, I enjoy the ability to make the decisions, the ability to be my own supervisor. It gives you some freedom. It's a good life. It's healthy. It's enjoyable. It's a nice way to make a living.
Okay, now let's talk about this year. It was a strange year to farm, wasn't it?
I don't think there's a year that isn't strange. Yes, it's always a challenge. It's never 2 years the same. It's of course we had a great early growing season, late dryness, and marketing was a big challenge this year because you didn't know where the prices were going. We never do, but it's been a challenge all the way around.
So it was a wet spring. Did you change any of your crop rotation because of the wet spring, or did you stick with your initial plan?
I pretty much stuck with my initial plan. I didn't plant things necessarily in the order that I would have, but I stayed with my rotation that I had planned ahead of time.
So what are you, 50-50, 60-40?
It's closer to 55-60% corn, 40% beans, something like that. Probably over the winter, I run a seed business. I do some custom cleaning for a company in the area, and so that keeps me busy during the winter for a month or two. And then after that, as far as next year goes, I'll probably have about the same mix of corn and beans. I raise seed beans for production, so I can't have all corn, or else that puts me out of my other business. But and I plan to, just enjoy the winter. Hopefully it'll be a mild winter. So looking forward to harvest. So this is always a fun time of year for me.
What's your favorite part about harvest?
Oh, just seeing what the yields are on different fields, and it's the culmination of a year, a hard year's work, and you hopefully are pleased with the result and what effort you put into it, so that you come out with good results. And of course, this year with the dryness, like I say, it's not quite as good as we would have liked, but yields right here are a little bit better than we had thought previously. So we're pretty fortunate.
What are you averaging?
Well, I'd say the corn on this farm and around this area, 150 to 180, 190, around there. Some fields a little lower or better, but beans, I'd say 40 to 50 is going to catch a lot of the bean yields. Probably.
That's a lot better than we thought during the middle of the drought, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. The worst drought we'd had in my history was '88, and I was trying to compare to that, and we have a lot better genetics than we did then, and so that helped a lot. And we had a wetter, earlier growing season. That helped too. Got the corn off to a good start, and then luckily some of that moisture in the late June, early July must have carried it through pollination a little better than we thought it would have. Yeah. So we're pretty fortunate.
One of the reasons it's been so hard to get a farmer to slow down and talk to me has been, well, with the little bit of rain we had last week, reminded everyone to literally make hay or corn or beans while the sun shines. But as anyone who grows anything around here knew, this summer's been dry. Too dry. Just ask my quarter acre of Kentucky bluegrass. Well, on this week's Under the Four River Sky, Cameron Craig looks at the drought we're still in and the chances and risks of it continuing.
A colleague of mine called me in late September asking, "What are those mysterious wet drops falling from the sky?" Laughing at his humor, I responded with a simple, well-known phrase: give it 5 minutes and it will change. At the beginning of the summer, we had more than enough rain to soak the ground. Since August, the rain seldom moved into the region, putting us in a moderate drought. Tonight, I want to focus on this drought that continues to show no signs of improving. The region has been in a moderate drought since mid-August due to the lack of significant precipitation. In August, the total precipitation was just over half an inch, down 2.82 inches from the 30-year average. Frequent rains did return to the region in September, but the precipitation was still half of an inch down from 3.38 inches. Although we had a surplus of moisture in spring, the total precipitation received from April through September was 26.77 inches, down 8.01 inches from the 30-year average. There are several reasons behind the cause of the drought, but the main culprit is the position of the jet stream. The jet stream is a channel of fast-moving air in the upper portion of the troposphere that helps in the formation and transportation of the low-pressure cells that bring us our precipitation. The meandering effect of the jet stream also determines the position of warm air and cold air. As the jet stream bends toward the north to form a ridge, warm air fills in just south of the ridge. When the jet bends toward the south to form a trough, cooler air fills in on the northern side. Precipitation most often occurs east of the trough where the low pressure is situated at the surface. In spring, the jet stream is most often positioned over the south due to the northern hemisphere being partially tilted away from the sun. As summer approaches, the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun, allowing the jet stream to migrate further to the north. Once summer turns into fall, the northern hemisphere begins to tilt away from the sun, allowing the jet stream to once again migrate south over most of the United States. The jet stream in August had two troughs positioned over the northwest and northeast United States, while a persistent ridge stayed to the north of the Great Plains. With the jet so far to the north, the southern third of the United States has continued to suffer significant drought conditions that plagues farmers of many crop types, including peanut farmers. Another culprit behind the current drought is the persistent heat influenced by the lack of significant moisture in the soil. Soil moisture influences the overall surface temperature of a region. When there is moisture available in the soil, temperatures will moderate slightly. However, when there is not enough moisture in the soil, daytime temperatures can soar as they did in August and the beginning of September. The dry soil increased the surface temperature, which increased the drying effect of the soil. It is similar to putting a chicken in the oven without water and watching the chicken dry up because of the heat. Dry soil also leads to dry air or very low dew point temperatures. When rain does move in, it is difficult for the rain to actually reach the surface because the air just above and at the surface is dry. The result is precipitation evaporates before it reaches where it is needed. In order for rain to make it to the surface, a significant amount of precipitation is needed to saturate the air above the surface, and hopefully by that time there is still plenty of rain to fall to soak the soil. There were many hopes of rain soaking the soil in August, but the soil was too dry and the chance of precipitation dwindled. If you thought those reasons were enough, get ready for just one more. With dry soil, hot temperatures, and the position of the ridge, winds also increase drought conditions. Winds typically increase during the day when the sun rises and increases the energy received at the surface. Without significant soil moisture to moderate temperatures, the winds increase, further drying out the soil if any moisture is left. Not only does the soil dry out with windy conditions, the crops also help in drying out the soil. Crop plants like corn and beans pull moisture from the soil and release that moisture through their leaves called transpiration. Windy conditions increase plant transpiration that results in doubling the drying of the soil. If we could have reversed the drought situation back in August, we would have needed the jet stream to shift further to the south with the east side of the trough over the Midwest and the amount of precipitation to remain within the 30-year average. However, what we always want will undoubtedly turn against us. For the next week, the region will continue to experience mostly sunny skies with no mysterious drops falling from the sky. But as I always say, give it 5 minutes and it will all change. Or will it?
And finally, this came across my desk. An Illinois State graduate and farmer near Normal created a tribute to his alma mater, a corn maze. The Ratter family made a maze on a 7-acre field and has opened it for visitors. From the air, you can clearly see the family's college of choice and the school's mascot. But at the bottom, you can see a horse-drawn plow and the words, 100 years of ag. Congratulations to the family. But come on, guys, Illinois State? Are you going to let them beat us in the corn maze race? We kicked Redbird bottom just a few weeks ago in football, but this is really important stuff. Who's going to answer the challenge? I tell you what, you build it, I will come, with a camera crew. So start working your designs now for a corn maze. We'll even figure out how to get a good aerial photograph. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be careful, and enjoy the sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.